A discreet admission took place in a chamber adorned with gold. Among Parker Schnabel's loyal men, Chris Dumit stands out. Members of the crew glanced at the monotonous grind and confessed what no one had expected. It was too much for him. Chris had been Parker's linchpin for a long time. Without grumbling, he had weathered the worst winters, never-ending cleanups, and grueling shifts until he was 59 years old. Season 15, however, was unique. The veteran, who never failed in his efforts, ultimately hit his limit when the weight became too much. There was some forethought behind the pressure. The tumultuous situation revolved around Parker's most daring objective to date, 10,000 ounces of gold. That huge sum was Parker's only concern from the start of the season onward. It was an exciting challenge that he was eager to pursue. Everyone else thought it was all in their heads. Parker took a bold step just to try. 3 separate wash plants are operational simultaneously. 2 plants, Bob's and Big Red Roxon. The reasoning appeared straightforward on paper. If more dots are produced by more machines, then there should be more gold. The actual result was a logistical nightmare. There was an absolute need for constant care for 3 plants spread out over various cuts. And Chris Dumit was right in the middle of it all. Over the years, Chris had always operated as an unsung hero. His role was vital, although nobody paid him enough attention. Recovery slew, processing concentrates. A solution from the sluice container is in a tank with us. The gold room is where you can find it. Chris Dumit, a seasoned miner, is now performing at his peak. It's going into a cleanup TRL, so I'm just going to hose it down, getting every last bit of gold out of the monster wash plant. The SLS containers that hold nuggets and pickers, the ridges that direct the flow of contaminants, and the bowls. Everything was under Chris's control. Season after season, he ensured Parker's absolute sword and converted cleanups into mayhem. Season 15 transformed that responsibility into an unattainable feat. It was more than just hard work to tend to 3 plants at once. Brutality ensued. Each cleaning had to be done with precision. Each container needed to be flawless. Plus, there was absolutely no room for mistake. In an unprecedented move, Chris finally came clean. 2 plants were too much for him to handle. Considering there were 3 locations, he conceded that it might have been doable. Even he was unable to handle it. The confession came as a surprise to the man who is famous for never grumbling. Quietness was maintained. Here was the truth. Everyone else on the squad was already pushing themselves to their limits. Parker had no intention of removing a crucial operator from expensive gear in order to conceal the gold room. Because of this, Chris was ensnared, drenched in wake, and on the verge of giving up for good. When things became too heated, Chris proposed the name to Donna Costa. Unlike the rest of the team, Donna Costa had special status. Among the many excellent workers there, she drove a rock truck, a vital cog in the wheel of transportation and an essential component in the process of moving the earth. With each load she carried, the wash plants were fed, dirt washed, and gold washed in. Mitch and Tyson were 2 of the 4 men who saw her as indispensable. Her presence was crucial. If she got lost in the field, the whole operation would have to be slowed down. An uncertain and unwelcome gamble. Nevertheless, the more significant danger subsequently arrived. Chris, who was uncharacteristically sweaty, overwhelmed, and uttering things no one had anticipated from him. It was too much for him to bear. In the absence of Parker's intervention, the recovery center's gold room would come to a standstill. It would be more than a setback if Chris completely disappeared. The results can be disastrous. Parker made the call despite the impossibility of the situation. After exiting her rock truck, Donna would enter the gold room. Chris would have helped with the never-ending cycle of slough, bowls, and concentrates if she was trained to do cleanups. It was a risk to reassign a top field operator to a task that demanded pinpoint accuracy, undivided attention, and perseverance. While the change did buy them some time, it did little to fix the underlying issue. An unspoken question weighed heavily on the Yukon air. Had the timing been off with this move? Is it possible that Chris may break completely if only one person offered him assistance? Or was it just postponing what was going to happen anyway? In order to grasp how serious Chris's breaking point was, he has a narrative that you must know. He did not come from a mining family like Parker. He worked as a carpenter. The initial link to the sector occurred nearly by chance. Constructing dwellings for the workforce of Todd Hoffman. The Klondike, though, has a way of luring visitors. Chris quickly found himself in need of mud rather than sawdust as a result of a string of jobs. Interestingly, he was very good at it. Exceptionally composed under duress, technically proficient, and work ethic driven. Chris succeeded when others from outside the team failed. Turning on a machine wasn't the only thing he found out about mining. The underlying principle was scientific. Chris possessed the mental faculties necessary to attend to each and every flow, adjustment, and calculation. Chris became an integral part of Parker Schnabel's youthful group during Season 4, and they hit it off immediately. He became Parker's rock in the gold room, entrusting him with the ultimate, life-altering decision. Parker broke records year after year because to Chris's careful labor, materials fall past the screen into the centrifugal bowl of this drum. While the bowl is spinning, the gold is being deposited into its ridges and held there. Chris was the driving force behind every milestone hole, keeping the recovery rate among the finest in the business. Parker would not have had nearly as many followers if he hadn't been there. Chris, though, wasn't merely an employee. He was an essential cog in the crew's wheel. A pressure cooker atmosphere was frequently produced by Parker's passion and sky-high demands. Amidst the rising tension and escalating disputes, Chris's humor, composed demeanor, and steady hand kept the team together. He went beyond the role of an employee. Aside from being an advisor, he was also a confidant and mentor. The mining industry's gold room is notoriously harsh. It only takes a single slip-up or incorrect estimate to throw away thousands of dollars worth of tailings. Chris was really good at it, so Parker's enterprise could continue to make money. That's why he was so emotionally fragile. For the simple reason that this included more than just a weary man. It was about the fact that Parker's whole business was built on shaky ground. How high the stakes were was demonstrated by the final total of the season. The squad will be well equipped for many years to come with 77,381 ounces. Even when Parker congratulated his colleagues, the reality still hung in the air. They had been saved by Chris Jumid, but it had come at an intolerable cost. The issue here wasn't whether Chris could continue. He had the option to do it or not. The idea of a gold rush without Chris Doom was nearly unimaginable to his longtime fans. It was no chance that Parker Schnabel ended up in the mining industry. It was his family blood. In the dusty little town of Honest in the middle of the 1990s, towards the end of July, Alaska, Parker stepped into a harsh, mechanized, and freezing landscape. The enormous nugget mine was skillfully managed by John Schnabel, a legendary grandfather. As a kid, Parker learned dot and machinery. Unlike his peers, he mastered the use of massive machinery that could move mountains, all while playing with toys. The mining lifestyle's rhythms became second nature to him under Jay's tutelage. The spark that each new nugget kindled became even more intense as time went on. He had progressed beyond mere assistance by the time he reached puberty. He was an expert in the field. While juggling high school basketball and lengthy shifts in the mine, he learned the harsh vocabulary of the industry. University was a possibility. Even geology was on his radar. Lectures were less audible than the law of gold. Parker put his savings on mining instead of furthering his education. Managing the Big Nugget mine on a daily basis, he did so at the tender age of 16. The crew's performance may have been disastrous with an adolescent at the helm. It wasn't enough for Parker to rely on his grandfather's fame, though. Knowledge, grit, and an unquenchable thirst for leadership were all attributes he displayed. As news of Discovery Channel's Gold Rush spread, his ascent to prominence became a topic of national interest. People couldn't get enough of the youthful genius. But celebrity on television wasn't all Parker desired. He astonished everyone in his late teens when he abandoned his family's mentality. He intended to reach the fabled Yukon gold fields. An enormous risk was taken. He rounded up a crew, rented some acreage, and set out for Allen. The gamble was well rewarded. Moreover, 1,000 ounces were harvested during his very first season fishing alone. There is no leniency in the Yukon. Crudely brief is the mining season. In the face of winter, day after day. Permafrost is a concretely hard barrier that must be removed before any pay dirt containing gold may be reached. The earth is perpetually frozen, as Parker once said. Workers are overworked when they are required to strip and slow down simultaneously. Everything comes to a crawl when the weather is cold. And it is just a portion of the difficulty. Transportation of fuel supplies and components must span enormous distances. Just how does one go about making that change? Transferring mining operations from one location to another is a massive undertaking. This is something that many miners fail to understand. Doing it too quickly will cause you to be overworked. And if you wait until it's too late, everyone will see through your desperation. Transport delays can result in hundreds of thousands of dollars in lost revenue. Errors are catastrophic, not to mention expensive. Nevertheless, Parker flourished in this setting. His insatiable need for adventure extended well beyond the main event. He followed a long-lost mining road in Paka's Trail, which led him through the treacherous Papua and New Guinean jungles as well as the rigorous Chalut Trail. After the Spino, he was known for more than simply being a TV star. Although he was ostentatiously a miner, he pushed himself into some of the most hostile circumstances in pursuit of a legacy. However, there is a cost to unrelenting ambition. The stress eventually took its toll on his relationship with Ashley Ewell, an Australian veterinary nurse who had worked with him on the show. Parker acknowledged that mining had always been the top priority. There was little room for anything else in his hyper-focused mind as he approached 30. You can put a price on the tale of Parker Schnabel's supremacy. No matter the season, his totals never failed to amaze. Their work altered the annals of the Gold Rush. The story of a young miner's journey from dreamer to achiever is etched into Yukon folklore with each passing year.